Peace, 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 and blessing, and welcome to another episode of the Freeway to Elevation, where we bring you the greatest talent across the country. And today we are so blessed to have an amazing educator who works in the space of counseling for young people and helping your young people not only navigate spaces, but grab the scholarships and prepare for those scholarships. So you position yourself to be able to maximize on these opportunities. So who we have here today is Miss Melinda Mihlbauer.
Good evening. I guess I'm saying good evening to everyone. So I think you did a great job pronouncing my last name. My name is Melinda Mihlbauer, and I am a high school counselor, certified high school counselor in South Carolina. But I also work as the founder of Paid Scholarship Academy. And I started that program in 2016, after my oldest daughter graduated from high school with 63 scholarships and 13 true full rides or full ride offers. And so I think I kind of got tired of people like stopping me at Walmart, and I'm on my Target run and they're, stopping me in the parking lot. And so we started Paid Scholarship Academy. And when my oldest daughter forced me to go on social media, that's really where it kind of took a life of its own. And so we have been nonstop ever since, and each year we're growing our program. And so people always want to know, well, how did you start the Paid Scholarship Academy? So I have a brother and sister who are twins. My oldest, my brother and sister, my brother has cerebral palsy. And so I wanted to help my parents kind of offset the cost of paying for two kids, right? They go to school at the same time. And so we started searching for scholarships. Senior year, I always tell people you'll learn from me that you can start earlier than that. But that's when we started, because most educators, they push, junior, senior year to start searching and applying for scholarships. But I have learned throughout this journey that, scholarships are available in all grade levels. And so lots of scholarships he received, having cerebral palsy, overcoming obstacles. He did very well in his school, graduated top 20 of his class. So that allowed him to go to his USC campus and not pay anything. And then my sister also received scholarships for College of Charleston. So she did, they split off and went to two different schools. And so again, I was helping them, helping my church members, just random people that wanted to hear me rant about scholarships and my students. And then I went over to an amazing school in Dorchester, Woodland High School. Shout out to the Wolverines. And I started linking up with programs like Gear Up, Trio, and traveling with them really across the country and learning about the college admissions process, meeting different scholarship organizations, going to some of those conferences that had a lot of GATE students and Ron Brown student winners. And I learned more about the process. And so I, took notes and took all of those things, brought it back to my students at Woodland. And then I used my real guinea pig, my oldest daughter. And we started this early. So like middle school, early high school. And when we talk about starting the scholarship process, again, if you ever, participate in any of our workshops, our boot camps, is more to it than just picking up an application and filling it out. So it's about being a well-rounded student, being marketable to scholarship organizations and colleges. I always tell people college is a business, and they're looking for, people, those success stories as well. And so that's what we use to start Paid Scholarship Academy.
Well, look, you just gave us a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so I hope that those who are out here looking, even if you don't have a child, you have a nephew, a niece, a cousin, somebody.
Church member, someone in the community, a neighbor, that needs that help. Yes, definitely.
So one of the things that in my mind, as I was listening to you share, and we talked about getting started early, what are some of the things that you would recommend for parents or caregivers to do to help prepare their young people in terms of, okay, you got the interview process, and please also let them know of the services that PACE offers that can help prepare those in those buckets, if you will.
And so we always say that there are numerous programs that are out there, but we seem to be working. We have across the country 1,600, and I know it was 1,612 last week with full rides. That means those students owe absolutely nothing for school, and a little over 15,000 students we have assisted with one or more scholarships. And so we make sure that we keep a track of those students, or when parents send that information in. So I feel as though confident enough that what we're doing, or our methods are working. Our methods are not the only ones out there. There are numerous organizations, but some of the tips that I share, especially with those students in elementary, middle school, early high school, community service, that volunteer work is really big for a lot of those organizations like Coca-Cola. I just said on another podcast the other week about Chick-fil-A. You don't have to work at Chick-fil-A anymore to apply for one of their scholarships, and it's $25,000 if you are, doing great things in your community. So we just strongly encourage the students to be those well-rounded students, do that community service, volunteer work. People always ask me, even during COVID, there's not a lot of opportunities out there. They're out there. Things through your church, a lot of back to school bashes were happening, and I shared that with students. You can easily call an organization and say, hey, do you need someone at the registration booth or to help give out book bags? You can get community service hours in. And another thing that we always share is about joining clubs and organizations. Not all clubs and organizations are found or have to be joined in your high schools or in your middle schools. There are virtual organizations that are amazing. There are also community organizations. I'm also an Optimus Club member. We have Junior Optimus Club that is available for students as well. Nesbi, National Society of Black Engineers, has a virtual option for students. The NAACP has a virtual option. The Girl Scouts has a virtual option for those students who don't necessarily want to be a part of those clubs in their high school. They may be shy or just not interested in those clubs offered, but do your research early. We started preparing early, and I also start preparing for my students the various options that are available for them as well. And also establishing those relationships with your teachers, your counselors, your administrators, your deacon, your pastor, because eventually you want them to do recommendation letters. That can really make or break, a scholarship application. What are other people saying about you? As far as in your community or in your school, most organizations may ask between 1 to 3 recommendation letters. So who are you going to get to do those recommendation letters? Again, we teach that letterhead speaks volumes. So if you get, what we use, the Harvest Hope Food Bank or the American Red Cross or Reefs Across America, these are some of the organizations that my oldest daughter and my 12th grader now participate in. So when they write a really great letter and they see this national organization and its own letterhead, that's going to stand out to a scholarship organization as well. So it's about establishing those relationships with your coach, your athletic director, just having a variety of recommendation letters. Most people are doing their teacher or their counselor. What can you do that's a little bit different from that as well? So those are just some of the basic tips that we share. It's a process. You have to put a lot of time and effort. I always say time plus effort plus support equals success. And so you have to be willing to put that time and effort in first. That's the key part.
I'm loving that time plus effort support.
Yeah, equals success.
It's very similar. I have this approach where we always meet at the intersection of preparation and opportunity, which is where we are able to execute. So going in line with you just shared, one of the things that I would also ask, when you tell the parents or caregivers or that support we have to do the research. I know you got traditional, first thing everybody want to do is run to Google. Are there any other?
Really though, I don't know if they're running to Google because, people will ask me, and that's the first thing that I would run to. We have our resources. I tell people all the time, we talked about the scholarship book. So we have written and published 3 ultimate scholarship books. This is 3 of many resources that are available. And I use other resources as well, but some of those scholarships that we have found or the organizations we've linked up with to put their information out, you're not going to find that in some of the other resources that are available. So again, I still use my 2017 version. I know the name of the scholarship. I put it in Google, and then I get the updated link or the updated application for those particular scholarships. But it's more to it. Instead of like randomly applying for everything, again, in our boot camp, we try to teach you to know who you are, to know your profile. What type of student are you? And that will help you decide which scholarships you should also apply for. So for example, the Chick-fil-A, the community scholarship that they just started this year, if you're not doing community service, there's probably no need to apply, because that's some of those key questions, the essay prompts that they're asking about, community service. And if you don't have that to bring to the table, then you shouldn't be applying for that particular scholarship as well.
That's excellent information. Now, you collaborate with others who actually help the young people in terms of writing their essays, because again, we tend to think is just go to the site, complete the scholarship. And like you said, you talked about the interview piece, and we got to talk about the essay piece. And
that's important. That's important. We host several essay contests each year. We give away 50 $500 scholarships. And one of the things that we share, not only with scholarships, but your college admission essays, when you submit an essay and the very first paragraph has 14 mistakes, no one is going to read the rest of your essay. And it's almost sometimes like you're wasting the scholarship organization's time because you didn't have other people review your essays. Now, personal opinion, I guess, I share with parents, I never review my children's essays. I tell them, go to an English teacher, social studies teacher. I have two friends that work with me, and I will send their essays to them, and also my oldest daughter. But I never read them because parents, you probably already think your child's essay is perfect. And you just have to think about who do you want to review those essays. Now, again, we share tips in our boot camp, and I always say reach out to your community. Reach out if you're in church. There are retired educators that would love to review essays, and that's what we did with my oldest. There was a retired educator, and after church, she took her down to the fellowship hall, and I tell people she whipped out a pack of red pens, and I said, oh yeah, she's about to, really go to town on this essay. And that's what you want. You want honest feedback on those essays. And also you can recycle. Once those things have been reviewed multiple times, you can save those. Don't just write it, send it to one scholarship organization, and then, delete it or dump it. But you can actually recycle, especially if there are similar prompts. For those scholarships, you can recycle or tweak those existing essays, unless it's a totally different prompt that you've never written on before. Definitely save them. We had, I think, 8 to 10 with my oldest daughter, and now we have an entire folder, I think like 12 or 13 with Jordan, who's now my current 12th grader, that have been reviewed by multiple people. And sometimes you can take a couple of sentences or a couple of paragraphs out of, one essay and, go to another essay and take out a paragraph or two or a couple of sentences, and then do that for another one, and then come up with a brand new ending, and you've already created a brand new essay as well. So, but definitely having people review your scholarship essays, your college admissions essays. If they say write up to 500 words, people don't send in 10 words or 20 words. The goal is to get as close to 500. But I've seen that from friends who work in admissions. They will send me, someone that actually wrote a couple of weeks ago about what you're passionate about. I know I'm passionate about kids. I know that's hard to believe, but that's all I got, the end. That was their essay.
Wow.
Right. And so parents are wondering sometimes, why didn't I get into this school? Or why didn't I get this particular scholarship? And sometimes it's the essay.
You said something that was real critical and important, because this doesn't only apply to applying to a college, but when they leave college, they're going to have to go through the same process to obtain a job. And so, to your point, tweaking your information, because every organization is different, like every school is different. Right. So they're looking for certain things in every program or department in each school. There's a different way to impress. So I guess my question for you, Melinda, is and you mentioned this earlier, how do we stand out or help those who we care about stand out? So it's not just the essay. Right. What can I creatively do?
Your hook or your platform, that's what you're talking, and that's what we love. I love to profile kids, especially in our boot camps, and I'm getting them to do their introduction and, telling me a little bit about themselves. And, a lot of them will say, oh, I don't have anything to write about. And once we are finished, you have a platform, you have a hook that you can actually write about. So sometimes you have to dig deep and not write about those, the cookie cutter things. Your mom is your hero, yes, but why? I had a student, and I shared this the other week. We did a workshop at UGA, and there was this big football player that talked about his Winnie the Pooh blanket, when a memorable object, and I'm like, oh, why is this big boy talking about a Winnie the Pooh blanket? But he talked about having a house fire when he was 4 or 5, and the one thing he was able to save was his Winnie the Pooh blanket, and they were homeless for 3 years. And so again, so now you have my attention. You have everyone's attention when you're telling that story. And even though they were homeless, his mother always made sure he attended the football practices and did the after school stuff. He graduated in the top 10 of his class. And, so we could not only hear the story, but we could visualize, we could see it, because he was telling a story, and how, despite that tragic incident, he was still able to rise above that. So that's how you stand out.
Yeah, I'm loving it, because that's that connection and human element. Everybody, when you start applying for colleges, particularly certain colleges, you always have all these people who are very skilled from an academic standpoint. But what do you have to offer to the school that's non-traditional, like that experience? Right. What's going to touch the hearts of the people that separates you from those other people? So I'm glad you brought that into the space. Another question that I would have would be really centered around, like, for instance, we talked about a lot of the traditional things, but alumni associations. Yeah, they do. Yeah, I target them all the time. That's on my list of other places to find scholarships. One, as the kids say, trolling, but whatever. I troll other high school websites. I encourage students to go, if they have a list of 10 schools that they're interested in,
check with those alumni associations at those particular schools to see if they're offering scholarships as well, those institutional scholarships that are available. But yeah, there's a list of resources that are available. Again, I've shared this before, and if you follow us on social media, we're kind of journaling our journey with my current 12th grader, going through this process now since, July 15th and, well, really during the summer, what she's been doing during the summer and leading up to applying for colleges and, getting overwhelmed. I shared with someone that I was overwhelmed this week, just checking behind her and she's doing everything that I'm asking her to do. But, again, having a plan in place is important. Parents, if you don't hear anything else, I would say if you have a goal, what's the plan? And so you definitely need to have that plan in place or your children will get overwhelmed throughout the process. So again, I already knew starting this school year when she was a senior, just based on her GPA and test scores, there are 28 schools right now, just based on that she can get into and not pay and go for 4 years. And so parents were saying, well, how do you know that? Well, and I Google, or I go on the admissions websites and I'm starting to profile some of these schools. And I already know these are like your safe schools. Like I know you can get into these schools and you won't have to pay. Now, if you want to go to another school, then we have to have that plan in place and you have to plan to apply for scholarships each week. And I do say that each week. So even though my oldest won 63 scholarships, I've had students to win 47, 52, 35 scholarships. They have done 2 or 3 times that many. And so that's something that I need to stress. Chanel didn't just do 63 and won 63. That's really not how that works. And so she, put a lot of time and effort in to applying for multiple scholarships each week. So that's all about having that plan in place. Utilizing the books. Our books are broken down. 2 of our books are broken down by the months of the year when they're due. And then the other book, our South Carolina version, is actually broken down by local, state, and national level scholarships. So we have 2 national books and 1 book dedicated to South Carolina residents.
And I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all, I have all 3 of the books. And great resources inside the book. So please.
There are over 3,000 scholarships in our national books. Yeah. So we kind of did the legwork for.
Yes.
For people. Yeah. Yeah. We kind of did the legwork.
Let me ask you a question. Please let them know what are your social media platforms so that they can follow you.
Oh yeah. Follow us.
Journey.
Right. Pace Scholarship Academy, Instagram and Facebook. I always say look for the yellow logo, like the one in the back, but we post a scholarship or 2 every day. So even if you don't, purchase the books, and that's okay. We do post random scholarships that are also not in the book. I'm always looking for scholarships. So there may be a new one that I post that you're not going to find in the book, but you can find it on our social media platforms as well. We post tips. We also sometimes will post a question and then just have our followers, share their information, like great places to find, summer camps or some of those schools that are doing free admissions applications. So we'll share that information on that platform as well.
Got it. Wow. So as I'm thinking this, and you talk overwhelming, your daughter mentioned overwhelming, I wanted to stop for a second because anytime you're in a space of education, as well as, I'm not even going to get in yet to this with the audience, but the amount of work you do even outside of school,
right,
helping young people and their parents navigate this process. How you started it, moving from 2,000 to 5,000. Before I move any further, how do you maintain your sanity and your own emotional wellness
right
in the midst of this?
Yeah. And I've had to learn to say no lately, just because, kids are going back to school now, and they're coming back with these balances. And sometimes I'll average about 300 messages in my inbox a day, just from, parents who didn't do this ahead of time. And, they have those bills they need to satisfy or have a plan in place. So I've had to learn to say no. But one thing I stress to parents, I think one of the biggest questions I get is, can you help my child? And we can, but we do groups. I prefer to work in, larger groups. I usually do 20 or more at a time. I realistically don't have the time to do one-on-one. And most of my friends that assist me, they don't do the one-on-one anymore as well. It's just, there's a lot of, I guess, work that needs to be done. But I in the month of August, I don't take any boot camp requests. And then I start in September. And then, along I'll take some breaks in there, or my husband or my daughter will force me to take some breaks.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. When you start getting into helping them navigate this process, let's talk a little bit about your boot camps.
Okay. So we went on tour this summer. Every summer we actually go on tour. I did 33 in-person and virtual workshops. So we're not just doing this in South Carolina. We're across the country doing this. And I try to take advantage of when I have opportunities. If I go to California, I went to California with one of my GATE scholarship winners. I take that opportunity to network and do some boot camps during that time. So even though I was her chaperone, I was still logging into a virtual boot camp, from the hotel. So I try to, do that during the summer. The boot camps are usually 4.5 to 5 hours. And that includes the scholarship essay portion as well. And so we just break down the process. And again, that's the part that parents, students, and educators miss, that there's a process to it. And even when they ask me on social media, what do I need to do to get started? And I'm thinking in my head, that's like not a 2 or 3 sentence, response that I can give you. It takes a lot to prepare, search and apply, and then ultimately win scholarships. And so that's what we teach in our boot camps. We offer essay writing workshops as well. I do not run those workshops. I have a certified English teacher. I used to do that. I just didn't have the patience with sometimes backing it up to English 1. So I've contracted with a couple of people to do that part. But what we're best known for is our scholarship and college fair. And I think I talked about that with you earlier. And we started that in 2017. And we started out in Sumter, where I was born and raised. And at Sumter High School, we came up with this vision to bring scholarship organizations, just like a college fair, but we brought scholarship organizations to an event, and we had over 2,000 people the first time. And so we knew we had a winner. We had people traveling from Georgia and North Carolina just to participate in this particular event. And scholarship organizations would take parents, students, and educators step by step through their application process, or what they're looking for in a potential winner. And so we also had breakout sessions, FAFSA 101, NCAA clearinghouse, writing a winning essay, ACT, SAT prep. I did a workshop. And then one of our popular rooms in the auditorium was our running PowerPoint. So we shared over 200 scholarships for parents, students, and educators, and the links. And you were just sitting there, and either you took notes or you used your phone and you took, pictures. And sometimes people would go in there and never come out because there, it's a lot of resources that we're sharing. We give away scholarships, we give away laptops, We give away gift cards, we give away books. And so that's like a 4-hour event, 3-4 hour event that we would have each year. And then when COVID hit, we went virtual. And then we grew twice as many people. So in the comfort of your home, we have an entire virtual platform. You know, it's not a Zoom link. People will say, send me the Zoom link. It's not a Zoom link. It's an entire production that we're putting on here virtually. And we invited national scholarship organizations for middle, high school, college, graduate school students to this virtual event. And we had the similar breakout sessions. And again, we played Kahoots and some other games and gave away laptops and all kind of printers, gift cards, all kind of stuff.
So Melinda is real humble. And I'm not going to let her blow by this the way she just did in regards to doubling the participation from the college and career fair from 2000, because the numbers is actually slightly higher than doubling it.
Yeah.
So tell them how many people.
So we average with the in-person events about 2,000 people per event. We went virtual with COVID. And so again, we had over 5,000 people for each event.
5000. I need y'all to hear that.
Yeah. And it's $5. And again, we ask for that online commitment of $5, but what we do is we turn it back into scholarships. And so we're giving away all of those great scholarships. We'll host our essay writing workshops, or, you know, you could be on and answer 5 questions on Kahoot and walk away with a laptop or $500. So just trying to motivate parents, students, and educators. And I always stress that. People always say, why do you say educators? Because, you know, there are a lot of educators that are still in that mindset that you don't apply for scholarships until your senior year of high school. And so we're always, you know, teaching them as well. We do train-the-trainer workshops where we will get counselors and community organizations together and realistically teach them some of those tools that we're sharing with students in our boot camps, so they can go back to their community or go back to their school and start helping or having that conversation a little bit earlier than 12th grade. You know, as soon as they come into 9th grade, that's when, you know, you really need to be hitting home with some of those opportunities.
Look, and talking with Melinda earlier, not only is she phenomenal, but those who she contract and bring to provide resources, services, and direction to your young people are top notch. And we were discussing somebody, and she was like, I wonder why they giving a guarantee on getting growth and scoring well on the ACT. So tell them a little bit about that.
Yeah, so one of the programs that we partner with is schools, and that's Valencia Bell. I share her posts all the time. So again, you can always go back on our timeline, or you can just, you know, on Facebook, just type in schools, or either, and it's probably easier to do Valencia Bell, but she does ACT, SAT prep. She puts in writing that she guarantees a 4 to 10 point score increase if you do the work. And I have to stress that if you, the student or parent, if your child will do the drills, if you have to commit to it. And again, if you do it, your score will go up. And I was a witness to that. My daughter participated, and then in turn, I let my students at my school participate, and their scores went up. And so I'm like, okay, she's the real deal. And so, of course, when I meet people like that, I put it out, you know, to the public, or I make platforms or situations available where she can talk to our audience as well. I'm just a strong believer in, you know, when I meet great people like that, and I already have an audience, I want other people to get that same opportunities that we do as well.
So one of the things I really hope that you all are witnessing is, one, you see humility. 2, what you should be able to see is that this is not about making money.
No.
So
we give it back.
Exactly. And this is why I knew I had to have you on the podcast, because the energy that came through Facebook and word of mouth, because I found out about Melinda from a good friend of mine and a colleague, and we shared work together, Patrick Patterson, who talked about how amazing she was, which explains that word of mouth, when you are doing things for the right reasons, impacting the right people, and allowing young people to, in many instances, be able to obtain something that otherwise they may have not been able to obtain it.
Right.
And so, as much as the one piece is important to me, the most important piece is really elevating people to understand that there are people like you, and what your product is doing great work, not only for South Carolina, but all parts of the country. And so I also want them to really, because you're a superwoman, wife, mother, work at the school. You also do this. You spoke to your commitment at church and some of the other things you do. So tell us a little bit about you outside of PACE.
Well, yes, I am a mother of 4. And my oldest just bought her first house because, of course, she went to school debt free. So, I always tell people her check is her check. So, just proud of her. And now I have a 12th grader, then I have a 9th grader, and then I have a 6th grader. So they're spread out. So, of course, they keep me busy. And then also being the wife of a retired serviceman. My husband did his time, 16 years. He got out early, but he did his time in the military. So I'm Army. So definitely proud of him and his accomplishments. And he witnessed me, just coming up with this program, and then just humbly, he's coming into, if he needed to, lift a box or, drive a truck here or there because I'm too tired, then he's always been willing. And that's one of the things that I love about him as well. And, just full circle, I never, ever, ever thought that I was going to be doing this when I was in high school, because I tell people my father was a high school coach, and he's still volunteering with track, but he was a high school coach, but he would always put kids in his van, or me and my friends in his van, and drive us to all these different schools in middle school and 9th, 10th, 11th grade. And I tell people that was my real first college tour, with my father. And, making kids, sit down, in the cafeteria at a college campus and filling out those applications. That's what he did. And I'm like, who wants to spend time doing things, like that, and not being with your family sometimes, and, staying after school and helping kids, fill out applications. That's what he did. And I just swore up and down I would never go into education, and I would never do that. And I did a year of biology at South Carolina State University. Did well, but then I decided that I took a class, actually. I took a special education class as an elective, and just fell in love with the whole process. And so I switched my major. And then after that, that's what happened. So, yeah.
It's funny. So the way my brain is structured, one of the questions in my mind was, what inspired you to go down that path?
Probably my dad. I tell people I don't really remember my guidance counselor, and I don't want to be that type of school counselor where they just don't remember the effort that I put in. But I always remember my dad just doing all of these things, even for his athletes, you know, helping them fill out clearinghouse. And I was like, a coach was doing this, you know, and not a school counselor. But, you know, that's really one of, you know, the roles that they are supposed to do. But the school we attended, it was a huge school. So there were, I'm sure, a lot of students that fell through the cracks, but my dad was going to make sure, you know, his athletes, my friends, my church, our church members, they weren't going to be like that. So, so yeah, he was definitely my inspiration.
So, you know, you kind of went into something else as well. And this is, you and I had a conversation earlier, and in that conversation, schools, you have educators, and some people are there to teach a job. And then other people understand that it's greater, it's bigger, and more impactful when you understand who people are. And you talked about it in the interview process, in the process of filling out the essay. You want to give the whole you. And that's what you embody, what I call a comprehensive approach when you're helping these young people navigate. Because you could have just talked about scholarship and not brought the essay person in, not brought the other folk in terms of interviewing and how you structure and prepare for that interview. So this is something that we really have to continue to make sure that we are tapping in to the Melinda Mihlbauers of the world, because that's who are going to put our young people in the right position. Because it's not just about, all right, I got in this school because it's a great school. You're also going to help them understand the same way you're sending off to try to get that scholarship. You're also looking at, is this school a good fit for me? Because we had that conversation earlier today.
And that's important to, you know which school is the right school for you. You know, I give my suggestions to my students. I give my suggestions to parents. You know, just knowing some of my parents or students are hands-on kids, and they love doing things with cars, but the parent has in their head, they want them to go to this 4-year, you know, popular school, but I know realistically, that's not what your kid really wants to do. And then they send them only to come back a year later or a semester later because, you know, their heart wasn't in it. So again, I do give my opinions. You know, not everybody will listen. But those who do, you know, they brag, my students will brag about that all the time. Like I would tell them, sit down, don't ask me any questions, just do it, you know, and when they do that, 9 times out of 10, they end up getting a full ride to school. Yeah. And just taking my advice and not always, you know, sometimes they would take my advice with certain majors and then they end up changing it and it works well for them. But they're still in school for free. And I'm okay with that as well. And they go on to do great things. I have 2 doctors, and one is in medical school now at NYU, but they have never paid for school, OBGYN and a surgeon. And they've never, ever paid for school. So any and everything, like, just do it. Just sit down, do it, fill it out. And they would win Tylenol scholarship, Daughters of the American Revolution. And then a student just graduated from Clemson on a full ride. She has a huge following on Instagram now. And she's at NYU and not paying for medical school as well. So it can be done. It can be done. Yeah.
Well, here's what I love. Because oftentimes, in the business world, in the world of academia, we focus strictly on the return on investment, right? So that scholarship, but you just shared some things in terms of that social return on investment. What does this mean to the young person, the parents? How have they made our community better?
Right.
And how has what you invested in them, how do they return that So it's reciprocated.
Yeah.
We're continuing to bring other people and we channel people back to Melinda.
And that's a big part I push. So at the scholarship fairs, we do student panels, and we encourage our scholarship winners to participate in that panel, as well as parents, and talk about their journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Or when they didn't, listen during football season and homecoming to Miss M, but then, they got their first denial letter for college or something. So it kind of snapped them back in focus, and then they got on track. There was a young lady, Maya Logan from Spartanburg, went to Dorman High School. I didn't start working with her until second semester of her senior year. And again, we told her, just do what I tell you to do. Don't ask me any questions. Trust. I just asked her and her mother to trust me. Just trust me. And by the time we finished with her, $500,000 in scholarships. She received 2 full ride offers to UNC Chapel Hill. I mean, she was a great student anyway. It really wasn't that hard. She had the pieces of the puzzle. We just helped her put everything in place. She was an ambassador for the Obama Foundation, a UNCF STEM scholar. She met Oprah for a weekend retreat with UNCF. So, and so now what she's doing is she's going back to her community, and she's also in North Carolina now, and she does speaking engagements. And she did that every year, even while in college. She made sure, because someone did it for her, is what she told them. So she wanted to do it for someone else. So I'm always about paying it forward.
Ooh. So I'm not going to occupy all your time because I know how busy you are, but I do. Normally I start off the show with asking to tell something that you're grateful for.
Well, the one thing I'm definitely grateful for is always my family, from my father all the way to my husband and my children, because without them, honestly, I couldn't be who I am today. I really couldn't. So I'm definitely grateful for my family.
Okay. And then lastly, Georgia and the University of South Carolina has some pretty interesting scholarships. And before we get to them, I did want to go here because I remember talking with a cousin of mine who's actually in Virginia. Her name's Dr. Natasha Rant. And so she was actually a Savannah, but she also, one of the things she did with her son, she wrote Nike, she wrote every place that he purchased products from. And to your point, it's amazing.
Right.
I think it's about 20 of them, probably about 7 of them she got some substantial money from.
Right. Because
they purchased their product, she went on their line, had conversation, and was able to secure money and funding. And so we got the traditional route and the non-traditional route of actually being able to secure money. And I only brought it up because she's got roots in South Carolina. And so there must be something in the water down there in that Palmetto State. And, y'all produce some great people. So yeah, I definitely wanted to put that in the space because it's definitely a journey. Yeah. And you have to have someone. And the reason, let me be completely transparent to the audience. One of the reasons how I even got Melinda's information was because I myself had a student who had a 4.49 GPA, graduated in the top 5% of her class. And there was a breakdown between the guidance counselor who was out, pregnancy, and a new one come on. They didn't submit. They somehow supposedly didn't hit the button to submit the scholarships. And so I knew that she was performing well and certain things were in place. I was that person who was waiting when I should have been proactive. And so we have to be honest so that we don't fall in that same space. And so I'm saying this and doing it on this platform. So we understand that we need to be having these conversations at least in 9th grade. And so now for me, my focus is like 4th grade. We're going to be talking about this. So when 8th grade comes for the kids I serve and the communities I serve, and we are not just our kids' parents, we are parents for the community. So I'm so grateful and thankful for you. And as I share all the time, we, you know, the traditional things we're grateful for, but there are educators and people like yourself who allow so many other people the opportunity to be great because of you, because your gifts are not for you, they are for the rest of the world. So publicly, I am thanking you, for all that you do for South Carolina and for the rest of the country.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So y'all heard it right here. You heard the links. It'll be in the show. The show will not only be on your podcasting stations, it's the Freeway to Elevation. You all know. And so I'm not sure who will look at this because they know Melinda, but follow the Freeway to Elevation because we are truly committed to elevating communities. My primary focus is on communities of color, but I serve the world. So thank you for watching.
Yes.
And then thank you for your amazing content, and even on a larger level for your compassion, your empathy, and your spirit, because not everybody can do that.